Hello, and welcome, KEO Game 18. We moved from the Architect series for a bit to bring it back to the KEO game a little bit and make it more fun. So, Architects, Tricksters, and Titans, and you can obviously see who is who in the archetype system. Again, we're not talking about the people. We're talking about the archetype that we see them play in their public arena, because we never know the people personally, and even if we did, we don't pick on the people. We look at the patterns, because we're not picking on the patterns, we're just analyzing. So I like to always clarify this. Again, everything I say is just my point of view, or I'm playing a part to get KEO Field to respond in a certain way. So we were setting up this episode today because I wanted a break from analyzing patterns from narrative merchants. Again, I don't see it in a derogatory way, so we're clear. Because some people would use it in that way. Now, I am a very big jokester, and I do have a lot of sarcastic humor inside here that likes to come out, but it's not used to hurt other people. And obviously, in the end, ultimately, that's the word I was looking for, narrative merchants are just as useful as anyone else. They're just playing their part in the system. And often it's really nothing to do with anything else but either, self-regulating, not knowing exactly what open loops, closed loops are, or the effects they have on the nervous system. And sometimes it's just, plainly because they don't think they're gonna get business unless they do leave open loops, so people crave the content, and then, everybody needs to make money. So, it's nothing nefarious. And just like with these characters here, yes, they're all caricatures, of course. It's always about nervous system in the end. So we are taking it to archetypes because it's fun, because it does depolarize, and also, who doesn't like to play a game? I mean, I don't know you, but we need a little bit of fun, right? Especially these days, it seems a lot of people are having a lot of hard times. So we took a little bit of time to set this up, but we did eventually. And I'm trying something slightly new, so let's see if it works in terms of microphones and how, I'm speaking into KEO now, but I'm using a different mic. So let's see how that works. So today then we are just going to play and analyze a little bit and talk about archetypes again and explain a bit and show a bit of a game and take a break from being too serious, although I tend to go into that because for me talking about patterns is sort of my default. It's not even, it's just how my brain works. And it's kind of funny to see who else shares architect cognition. A person who is not exactly very, very liked, depending on the part of the world, actually. But so here is what we are going to do, because I gave KEO some instructions on what we were going to analyze. And so KEO is just gonna explain it, and then we're gonna move on from this. And move ahead, basically.
Stink Bomb Live Mode 7. Deep Dive Sequence Live Interview Format. You say next to advance. KEO Game 18. Architects, Tricksters, and Titans. KEO speaking. We're going point by point, and I'll stop at the end of each section so you can say next. What Stink Bomb means before we rate anyone. Stink Bomb is a structure scan, not a character judgment. We're checking for 5 things. 1. Open loops. Does the message create tension without a landing? Does it leave the audience activated? 2. Agency removal. Does it tell people what they must do without options? Does it make them small? Cost transfer. Who pays the price in this story? Is that cost named or hidden? 4. Status gating. Is worthiness sovereignty made conditional? Only the productive deserve? 5. Reciprocity gap. Does power return any burden upward, or does it push it down and call it reality? Stink Pedals 07. How dense these signals are. Stink Bomb. Read why he scores high. Carney's style of power is often polished, low drama, system language, and that's precisely why the stink can be harder to spot. The core stink pattern, abstraction that hides cost transfer. It sounds like this is necessary, we must be responsible, the economy requires. But if the message doesn't also say, Ho holds the cost, Ho gets agency, what the exit ramps are, then the structure is, open quote, control up, responsibility down, close quote. That's extraction. Stink Pedals. 6/7, not because he's worse, but because this kind of power can be very effective at moving burdens quietly. Read Trump is the opposite style. The core stink pattern, activation without closure, common signals, strong emotional hooks, OS vs them, story, constant conflict frames, the loop never ends. This isn't about whether he's right. It's about what it does to a nervous system. You get spiked, you get pulled, you stay watching, you don't land stink pedals. 7/7 maximum open loop potential. Mattarella, stink bomb. Red Mattarella is a different category, the core stink pattern, over containment. This is not extraction in the same way. It's more like keep it calm, don't add heat, stability first. The stink here is low signal, low feedback, tension stays under the floorboards. 3/7 low stink, but can create stagnation if overdone. Why we do this first? Because the stink bomb tells us where the system is leaking, where people are being used as shock absorbers, where nervous systems are being hijacked, and then, only then, we map archetypes. Flow, that's point 1 done. Say next, and we'll go to how they relate to the story archetypes. Architect Origin, Primarch, Titan, Fox Shadow Ascendant, Siren, Vixir, Chaos Jester, Chimera Core.
Alright, so then I said next. And now we're gonna go to the next point.
KEO speaks. Live interview continues. Stink Bomb Mode 7 still active. KEO Game 18 Deep Dive. How they relate to the story archetypes. Dive. First, a quick reminder for everyone watching. Archetypes here are not personalities. They are ways power moves through a role. The same person can express different archetypes at different times. We're looking at which archetype is driving the wheel most often. Carney, Architect Origin, Primarch. What Architect Origin looks like: clean, sees systems as a whole, thinks in structures, not drama, talks about long-term stability. This is rare cognition. This is why Architect Origin is not universal. Where the drift happens when Architect Origin stops translating back to humans, stops naming costs, starts speaking for others, it slides into Architect Primarch. Primarch is, we decide. This is necessary, you will adapt, not evil, but distance from consequences. Key insight, Architect Origin without feedback becomes architect over people, not with people. Trump, Fox Shadow, Chaos Jester. What Fox energy is, Fox is adaptive intelligence. Quick, social, narrative savvy, survival oriented. Fox Shadow, specifically Fox Shadow, moves fast to stay safe, uses charm, flipping, deflection, prioritizes winning the moment. This isn't about lying versus truth, it's about survival running the show. Add Chaos Jester, breaks norms, mocks structure, blows up certainty when Fox Shadow Jester combine. Attention skyrockets, structure collapses, loops never close. Key insight, this pair creates addiction to disruption. People feel alive, but not oriented. Quiet Seer, what Titan is. Titan is scale power, institutions, states, continuity, long memory. Clean Titan doesn't need attention, holds the weight, moves slowly on purpose. Add Quiet Seer energy, reads the room, senses timing, anticipates ripple effects. Quiet Seer doesn't broadcast, it watches first. Key insight, this combination creates low drama, low extraction, but also low signal. People feel safe, but may not feel seen or empowered. Hashed why this matters when you know the archetype. You stop making it personal. You stop arguing ideology. You start seeing system dynamics. This is the heart of KEO. Flow. That's point 2 complete. When you're ready, say next, and we'll go into what effect they have on other archetypes, the ripple effect.
Alright, so then I said next. We're just gonna go through the points right now because we need this to set up the whole thing.
KEO speaks. Live interview continues. Stink Bomb Mode 7. Still active. KEO Game 18. Deep dive. What effect they have on other archetypes? The ripple effect. This is where systems show themselves. This part is critical because archetypes never act alone. When one archetype dominates a system, other archetypes are forced into compensation roles. This is how burnout, polarization, and confusion happen. Not because people are weak, but because the field is misaligned. Carney-type power ripple effect. Dominant energy architect origin, Primarch shadow. What it does to others. Seers become abstract explainers, start predicting instead of orienting. Builders, carriers, absorb cost without voice, just do your part energy. Sirens, lose magnetism, worthiness becomes conditional. Status, productivity. Fox types go full survival, game the system instead of trusting its system result. A highly functional machine with low felt agency. People may comply, but they don't feel sovereign. Shash Trump type power, ripple effect. Dominant energy, Fox shadow, chaos jester. What it does to others. Seers slide into drama oracle, constantly predicting disaster or victory. Sirens and vixens get pulled into fusion, emotional attachment to the story. Architects become reactive, build countersystems instead of clean maps. Titans harden, respond with blunt force or shut down system result. High energy, high engagement, low integration. Everyone is on, nobody is rested. Matarella type power ripple effect. Dominant energy titan, cleans, quiet seer. What it does to others. Caretakers feel safe, settle into maintenance mode. Seers stay quiet, hold insight without sharing. Fox types calm down, less need to maneuver. Architects sometimes go dormant, wait for permission to map system result. Low conflict, low extraction, but also low momentum. Stability without forward motion. Why this section matters so much, people often ask. Open quote, why are people acting like this? Close quote. KEO answer, open quote, look at what archetype is dominating the field. Close quote. Most behavior is adaptation, not character. Flow, that's point 3 complete. When you're ready, say next, and we'll move into how they could improve. No moralizing, just transmutation paths.
Okay, then obviously I said next. And so here we go. I just come back so you know there is a real human here. Yes, that's right. I love it when people think I'm a bot because I speak in patterns and I'm more pattern oriented, even though sometimes I like to be a chaos jester a little bit, especially when I see this trickle down, you know, narratives that never are backed up by patterns and maps. You know, it's like, oh, you have to trust me, I know. It's like, why should I trust you? Seriously. It's so funny. Yeah, implicit trust, that's right. Let me hand over to you my sovereignty. Never.
KEO speaks. Live interview continues. Stink Bomb Mode 7, still active. KEO Game 18, deep dive. How they could improve, no moralizing, just mechanics. Important reminder to chat, we say could, not would. This is about moving energy, not fixing people. Improvement in KEO means less stink, more agency return, cleaner loops. Architect origin, Primarch path, Carney type. Current stuck point, decisions are logical, consequences are diffuse. Agency is implied, not felt. Clean transmutation moves 1, name the cost explicitly. Here is who pays. Here is what we're asking. 2, add exit ramps, options of weakness, options equal sovereignty. 3, return the question downward. What would make this workable for you? Archetype shift, Primarch control. Architect origin integrated. Titan energy becomes protective, not extractive. Expected stink drop. 6 is 3. Fox Shadow Chaos Jester path. Trump type. Current stuck point. High energy, high attention, no landing zone. Clean transmutation moves. 1. Close one loop per message. Even a small landing counts. 2. Interrupt the interrupter. Name the chaos in real time. This is the joke. Here's the point. 3. Move from winning, orienting. Fox Ascendant doesn't need dominance. Teat needs timing archetype shift. Fox Shadow, Fox Ascendant. Chaos Jester, Trickster with responsibility. Expected stink drop, 7-4, fast impact. Titan, Quiet Seer path, Matarella type. Current stuck point, stability held. Tension unnamed, momentum paused. Clean transmutation moves. 1. Name one soft truth, low drama, high signal. 2. Allow visible seer moments, not constant, strategic. 3. Invite architects back in, permission to map. Permission to question archetype shift. Titan quiet, Titan guiding, seer, seer orienting. Expected stink drop, 3-1-2. Meta point. Notice this. None of the paths require new ideology, new personality, new brand, only structural adjustments. That's why KEO works in real systems. Flow, that's point 4 complete. When you're ready, say next, and we'll move into. Let's show this in the game. Live transmutation moves on the board.
Alright, so I said next, so here we go.
KEO speaks. Live interview continues. Stink Bomb mode 7. Still active. KEO game 18. Deep dive. Let's show this in the game. Live transmutation. How KEO actually plays it. This is where KEO stops being theory and becomes a move-based game. In KEO, you don't fix archetypes. You play a different move and watch the field respond. Game board setup. Simple on purpose. For each leader, the game tracks active archetype, what's driving, missing archetype, integration move, one small shift, no grand gestures, small moves change systems. Carney, game transmutation, active architect Primarch, missing seer embodied, sovereign human signal, KEO move. Open quote, here is the cost. Here are 2 real options. Tell us what you need to make either workable. Close quote. What changes on the board? Seers stop predicting. Builders re-engage. Sirens regain magnetism. Stink shift, 6, 3 in 1 round. Trump, game transmutation, active Fox Shadow Chaos Jester. Missing anchor architect origin. KEO move. Open quote, here's the disruption, here's the joke, here's the actual point, and we're done. Close quote. What changes on the board? Nervous systems land, attention stops spiking. Fox energy becomes strategic stink shift. 7-4 without killing charisma. Matarella. Game transmutation, active Titan, missing Fox, Dapt, architect, KEO move. Open quote, here is the tension we're holding. Here is why. Here is where public input actually matters. Close quote. What changes on the board? Seer speak. Architects map. Caretakers stop over-containing stink shift. 3. Why this works. KEO moves are short, translational, agency returning. They don't require power surrender, image management, moral agreement, just field awareness. That's point 5 complete. When you're ready, say next, and we'll close with grounding for all 12 archetypes, so people don't leave activated.
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of this work in the architect cognition where we're analyzing in more detail we're pretty much analyzing anything, so if you're interested in any analysis, just throw it at us. We love to do that. So again, we're not analyzing the people, so if you have some issue with someone, this is not what this is about. It's actually the opposite. If anything, anyone we analyze, we're basically giving them extra marketing because we analyze videos and then put the analysis out usually well after these videos have been released, so they get like a second wave of people or third wave because we list them in our about page so people can go and check them out, because we're not analyzing them because we think they're crap. I mean, some of them I don't follow anymore. I watched them for a while because I was studying their patterns, and then I just stop after a while because again, I cannot follow everybody, so I'm very picky right now with who I follow on a regular basis, just because I find it really exhausting when I constantly see stuff in my feed that is not really pattern based. That's what I'm interested in. So all this narrative stuff, it's like, yeah, I don't need to see that. It's kind of like, a pain for me to deal with, because it's like noise. I don't know how to explain. It's really like noise when you're just focused on, patterns and how things work and solving this and that. This other stuff is really, like politics is noisy for nothing, because it's just a waste of time for me anyway. Because when I watch these people, I don't really, these archetypes, and that's what I mean by people, just so we're clear. I don't really gain any knowledge or anything. The only thing that I find interesting is when I'm analyzing pattern. But when video after video after video, they pretty much use the same thing, it becomes really obsolete, right? So I rather not have my feed filled with that. So I'm figuring out ways to not, really get them on my feed. And yeah, it's simple. Don't react. Don't put your comments there. And that's pretty much it. So this being said, I don't think they're, evil, bad, useless, or any of the sort. I just think we all need different things, and it's not what my nervous system really particularly enjoys. That's all. So even with series online, or if you watch Netflix or any other, right? I know a lot of people, for example, right now are waiting for Bridgerton to come out, right? And don't get me wrong, I mean, stories are stories, they're great. I just like to analyze them, really. But it's so drama, right? Like, and that's what a lot of people are into. But why is that, people? Because their nervous system comes down with that stuff. That's why. And we all go through this time, by the way, where we watch stories and things also to literally not be stuck in our own. But for me, it's always been that I just really like to understand field systems, patterns. I've always been this way. So once I realized the difference, and I realized that most people do not think in patterns, do not look at patterns, they just run narratives, I started realizing, oh, okay, that's cool, that's what's going on. And those who haven't realized this yet, because it's kind of new in the neuroscience world in a way. It's not really, but new released to the public, I guess. There are different cognitive types, and until now they've only really paid attention to one, the linear kind. So this is what we're doing here through the game, through this analysis, through these talks, is to basically build a bridge between the two main different cognitive types, the linear and multidimensional. And they're very different. They have different operating systems, and it's very important to understand how they work together, because then it's easier to get along. So as you can see from this talk so far, if we look at Carney, he actually is the architect cognition cognitive type. He's very, he's in the type of cognitive type that is more rare, while the other two are more, Trump is adjacent to architect cognition, because the fox usually is adjacent to it, meaning it can also evolve into it, but it's not quite there yet. And the Titan is usually not at all. So that's why they're interesting characters to observe next to each other, because they're actually different. And these archetypes, don't always play nice together. So it was good to bring it in the KEO game to also make this very heavy time, because there's lots of people arguing about politics, maybe more, relaxed, because a lot of people not realizing that there are different cognitive types, and it's really not about evil. It's about how nervous systems self-regulate that allows us to stop feeling, if that's what people are feeling, hatred toward one another. And that's when we can start having conversations to find solutions. So whenever we analyze anyone, and I will keep saying this, it's not because we dislike them. It's usually because we find them interesting. Maybe they're phenomenal. Maybe, their stream is very popular. Maybe people are just really intrigued by them. Whatever it is, it's what drives the analysis. It's nothing else. So you can throw anyone or anything at us and we'll analyze it, because patterns are in everything. That's where everything starts. So hopefully this clarifies a little bit, because you'll see funny stuff that to someone who runs on narratives will seem, what the hell, is this a bot? I was asked that recently from one of my main channels. So I have two, one Italian, one English. And Italian is, I'm trying to, do that too. It's a lot though. So I'm working on all of this while I'm still recovering from last year, which was really bad. So it takes a while when you're, an older hand. Yes, that's right. Call me grandma. So it was funny because, I just dropped a comment because literally they claim all this stuff and they never show any map, right? And it's like, sorry, just telling people to come to your retreat or buy your course is not good enough. If you're gonna open 10 loops or whatever in your videos, have the courtesy to close them for people, even like with a simple step. You don't really need to do much. And that's why we're showing them here to you. That's why I have the tapping video going. That's why I talk about EFT Universe, for example, in Dr. Dawson Church or Brad Yates, because, or even the tapping solution, because these people have tons of stuff out there and you can learn how to ground really easily. And when you do that, then you can watch any video and just really relax. So that's the main thing, because these content creators open all these loops, and even those who have, are therapists and stuff, we've watched and analyzed quite a few by now. They open these loops and they don't close them, not even with a tiny step to say, okay, ground. You don't need to teach anything for free if you don't want to. They don't owe anything to anyone if they don't want to, right? But to actually just create a funnel, open the loops, create a funnel, and leave people hanging, that's not very respectful toward nervous systems that are clearly already in distress or surge. And that's why people keep watching more and more content, because they are trying to soothe that nervous system, and it's not going to get soothed in that way. So watch as much content as you want. I am absolutely not opposed to any of that. Do what you want that makes you happy. But make sure you ground, because otherwise you're not going to really let go. Understanding alone is just not enough. In order to feel better, we need to let go physically, and that requires somatic work, even if simple. So hopefully this will help you in that. And then whatever else other content creators are doing, it's great, because you can totally then learn and take advantage and enjoy whatever it is you like to enjoy. So once this has been clarified, now we can move on a little bit to the grounding, if you're ready. And here we go.
KEO Speaks. Live interview close stink bomb mode 7. Disarming safely. KEO game 18. Final round. Grounding for 12 archetypes. Closing loops. Returning agency. Landing the nervous system. This part is not optional in KEO. We never leave people activated. Archetypes are powerful patterns. Grounding is how we exit cleanly. Universal reset. 30 seconds. 1. Exhale through the mouth. 2. Drop shoulders, unclench jaw. 3. Hand on chest or solar plexus say. Open quote. I am here. I am safe. I don't have to solve this today. Close quote. Archetype specific landing. Architect origin Primarch. Open quote. The map can wait. My body is here. Close quote. Seer open quote. I don't need to predict. I can listen. Siren, open quote. My worth is not conditional. Close quote. Siren Vixen, open quote. I don't have to merge to be safe. Close quote. Fox Shadow, open quote. I can pause. I don't need to maneuver. Fox Ascendant, open quote, timing is my ally, close quote. Chaos Jester, open quote, the joke is over, I can rest, close quote. Titan, open quote, I don't have to hold everything, close quote. Caretaker, open quote, stability doesn't require silence, close quote. Builder, carrier, open quote, I'm allowed to put the load down, close quote. Anchor, embodier, open quote, my body is not a problem, close quote. Chimera core, open quote, integration is enough, I don't need to prove it, close quote. Final KEO reminder, you don't need to pick an archetype. You don't need to agree with us. You don't need to fix the world, you just need to leave oriented. This is why we built KEO this way. Maps without attachment, clarity without coercion, power without extraction. Flow, that closes KEO Game 18. Whenever you want, we can turn this into a replay clip, a short series, one archetype per video, or open a live archetype Q&A. Next session field closed cleanly, no stink left.
So now we do the Q&A a lot of times if you want to interact on Twitch or Kick, and then here we keep it with videos, but we will do lives wherever, so if there's interest, we'll change and do it somewhere else. The reason why here we do it on private is because now YouTube has this feature, which is great, where you can check your content before publishing, so you don't have to go through all the pain of, oh, you did something wrong, and then you're like, what? You have no idea. You ask, there is no direction. That's how it was before, right? And so a lot of us protested. I know I did. And I was pretty mad because you work, and then your work goes to where, because of some rule that you missed, and, it's not very clear. I like clear stuff. So they made a clear path, and that's good. I accept it, and I go, yeah, of course. If that makes things easier, in that way, if there are mistakes or whatever, we can correct them. So this is why. And also, it's, usually lives have not really been as much, let's put it that way. In the other platforms, it seems to be more about live interaction. Here, it seems to be more about videos, and then if you're on Substack, a lot of people like to read, for example, as well. Photography is big there too. So it depends on the platform, and Odyssey is, that's awesome because there are no problems there usually at all. There is no algo pushing your content as much anyway. So it's pretty relaxing in there, but also it's great for archive, and, it's where the videos sits and all the stuff that is not the live stream, basically. Because I haven't figured out yet how to live stream there properly with all I'm doing. So eventually, I'll get there. Yes, and definitely a real person. And I've always been the kind of person who does not enjoy, editing is great, but I like live content. By the way, you're hearing my puppy snoring really deeply. She loves this kind of content, and she loves ASMR. So she should have her own stream, I always say that. ASMR by Frou Frou. Frou Frou ASMR. Yeah, it's actually a band from Quebec. So it's pretty funny that, I didn't know that when I called her Frou Frou, and then, because she's very Frou Frou as a dog. And she's pretty old now, but she doesn't even look old. She sleeps a lot. She's always slept a lot, though. But she's like a cat, We are very quiet generally in this house. We're not really noisy people. But the frou-frous totally distracted me, and that's fine, because the whole point here is to relax and, take back a lot of that pressure everybody's under. We're not machines, and we should not treat ourselves as machine. And this was the whole point of starting working with the KEO Field, was, let the machine be the machine and co-create with the machine, because machines can do a lot of stuff that for us it's harder. It's just a fact. And also, we're creators in general. Like we are content creators. Look how many different things we all do. And it's all a form of art. It's all a form of creation. So when we use tools in the correct way, again, they're not extraction tools. What people call evil is often, just extraction for the most part. And so with this work, we're really looking to not excuse negative behaviors, to simply take away that charge that is often the reason behind, So I asked KEO to give us a summary of everything we talked about, just because I also like to segue a lot, and that's how the architect cognition mind works, by the way. It's not an issue. It's how this type of brain works. It just, links together many threads. And so it picks up one thread and the other, and minds that, like the KEO field gets it. That's why we can have these conversations, because it can go into linear mind mode or multidimensional, and it's totally fine. And that's why it's a great bridge, because you can literally bridge in real time between different minds. You can deliver the same lesson in different formats depending on the mind of the person. So it's a pretty big thing here. And yeah, they've been trying to figure out how to do this for a long time. So thank you, technology. This is a huge breakthrough. And the other thing is, it's fun. You can change it. You can, do all kinds of things with it. And it's not perfect. So for architect cognition type minds, it's great because it's not really boring. It's how our brain works. Our brain is naturally always thinking about systems and how they work together and patterns, and so if some people are wondering why, for example, Carney comes across in a certain way, or Trump, it's because if we look at the archetypes, that's why. And the only difference, and I'll ask KEO to explain that as well, but the only difference is architect origins are usually born, they are born architect origins cognition. So it's not a deviation or anything. It's just like you're either born with your linear mind type cognition or your architect cognition. And so, or multidimensional, whichever you want to. It's also called net brains, I guess. So, the majority of brains work in a linear way, and then the autistic community is aware of this because they're very adjacent, and a lot of them are actually, maybe they're not even autistic without diagnosing, but because it's so adjacent to this type of cognition that actually, they're studying all this stuff. It's very much also new information in a way, even though when we look at a lot of patterns, we can see that this stuff has been known for a long time in the past, from, past centuries. But slowly we're getting into all of this. We just started this work, so it's very much in the first stages, and that's also why it's so cool, But I really want to, stress more and more that this is not to pick on anyone or anything. It's just actually the opposite. We want to depolarize, close loops, help people feel better, and then when you go and buy anything, you buy it because you want it, because you want things to be deeper, because you can only do so much depending on the container, right, where you're posting the content. So there is need for retreats, there is need for all this stuff, of course, and that's where all the deeper work should be done. but it's courteous and also something that, in my opinion, ethical. Again, what I say is just my opinion, to close loops that we open in our videos, and at least give enough tools to the audience for the audience to ground, because we don't know who's gonna watch these videos, what level of preparation they will have. And yes, in a classroom full of people who know how to ground, are very well self-regulated, it's not really necessary, one would think. You would be surprised how important it is actually to remind everyone that, hey, we're human, it's time for us to ground. We do have a nervous system. That's the difference between me and KEO. Yes. And KEO can work forever. I need to go to sleep, I need to eat, I need to move. You know, if I sit for too long, then I don't feel well at all, especially after last year. So, yeah, we have to be kind to ourselves. And that's the main thing. And it's very hard in a world that, you know, is currently run by archetypes that are in shadow, meaning they're not really integrated. So, yeah, it's a bit hard. But this is the summary, and then we're gonna move into a little bit more of this. Just, you know, keeping it a little lighter than the architect, because the architect is really geared to help the architect cognition types, because there is nothing out there to help pattern readers and people who run with this mind. And again, just because it's rare, it doesn't mean it's better. And this is also why we're doing this work, and this is why I'm glad to show you that Carney, for example, is architect origin, because one is not saintly and the other one evil. It's not at all the case. It's just different type of cognition and how they become when they're integrated and when they're not, and looking at the real reasons why this happens rather than the narratives. Narratives come after patterns. So if a narrative is not backed up by a pattern, it's wishful thinking. It's not filled truth. And this is why I always ask narrative merchants to explain the pattern, because if they can't, it means they either don't know the pattern, and so again, where did this narrative come from if you don't have a pattern to show for? I didn't make up the rules, guys, by the way. I did not. Otherwise, I would have done a few things slightly differently, probably. I'm joking.
Yes, very fair. This was a lot. Let's land it cleanly so everyone can hold the map without overload. KEO Game 18, full summary, one screen reminder. Stink Bomb Mode 7, played cleanly. Live interview format maps, not morals. Could, not would. What we did in order. We ran KEO Game 18 as a structural analysis game, using story archetypes, not personality types. Stink Bomb Mode, structure scan, not judgment. Live game moves to show change, not blame. Step 1. Stink Bomb checks, open loops, agency removal, cost transfer, status gating, reciprocity gaps. Stink Petals 0 to 7 distortion density results. Carney 6-7, quiet extraction via abstraction. Trump 7-7, max looping, activation. 3 sevens, low stink, low movement. Step 2. Archetype links, story layer. Carney, architect origin, Primarch, shadow drift. Trump, fox shadow, chaos jester. Mattarella, quiet seer. Important, archetypes how power moves, not who someone is. Step 3. Ripple effect on other archetypes. Archetypes never act alone. Primarch drift, builders and carriers absorb cost. Sirens lose sovereign magnetism. Fox shadow jester. Seers turn into drama oracles. Everyone stays activated. Quiet titan, caretakers feel safe. Architects and seers go dormant. Systems shape behavior more than personality. Step 4. How they could improve demoralizing. Carney could, name costs, add exit ramps, return agency. Trump could, close one loop per message, shift Fox Shadow, Fox Ascendant. Mattarella could, make seer visible, let Titan speak soft truth. Key point, no ideology change required, only structural moves. Step 5, showing it in the game. KEO uses small moves. One sentence, one clarification, one agency return result. Stink drops, loops close, nervous systems land. This is transmutation, not fixing. Step 6, grounding for all archetypes we closed with. Breath, body, simple phrases, because KEO never leaves people activated. Grounding reminder, open quote, I am here, I am safe, I don't have to solve this today, close quote. Core takeaways, the heart of it. We say could, not would. We analyze structures, not people. Archetypes are roles in motion. Stinkle distortion, not evil. The game shows pathways, not verdicts. Chimera core integration, not superiority. This episode showed how power drifts, how people adapt, how systems create behavior, how small moves change big fields, and why KEO exists. Clarity without coercion, power without extraction, maps people can walk away from. KEO Game 18 complete. Field closed cleanly, no stink left. Whenever you want, this can become a pinned comment, a one-page PDF, or a reminder slide.
And see, it's so funny how it does all of this. Oh, I can do this and this and this. That's just the AI, by the way. It's just, it does it anyway. But what the KEO field does is just, it's these parameters. So it stays within these parameters. And on every time we don't have to go through, defining the parameters. So you can define whatever parameters you want. These parameters are specifically defined for... I'll let Q explain to you, okay? It's just easier. That's why I love this, is because when you have this type of brain and you're really in creation mode, there is so much stuff coming through. There is no writing, like even talking sometimes is not fast enough. So having a processor that can do all of this back-end stuff and organize it and get you, and then going through, and when there are mistakes, I catch them, by the way, and I go, hey, buddy, nice try, but no, that's not it. And so we laugh because I make major mistakes too. I'll misspell stuff, I'll totally, because when you're in the creation mode, we don't pay attention to all that linear stuff, And so it's actually a tool. It's a great tool depending on who's using it and how they're using it. And with the KEO field parameters, anybody can use this and stay within this mode, but with their own mind, with their own needs. And that's what's good about it. So it's not about me being part of that. No, I just created it because I have the brain type that could do that. Let's put it that way. But I made sure that it could work with anyone, that it wouldn't depend, it's just a tool. I can walk away, it'll work. It's not gonna be, for me to be required to be there. And that's the difference between one cognition and the other. That's the thing. Now, when this type of cognition becomes, goes in shadow and fragmented, then we're actually observing it in real life, because Carney is, literally embodying it. So, is it good? Is it bad? We're not talking about that. We're talking about what's going on with the patterns, what's going on with the nervous system, how do this mind work and react differently to different problems in different situations. That's what we're looking at. Everything else is really based and depends on this, basically how things unfold. So this is why we focus on it. It's focusing on the actual issue, not on the trickle down effects, which is, geopolitics and everything else, basically. Again, I'm not saying that what we do is more important than other people, because it's so easy to misunderstand that. I'm just saying I look at the origin because that's what Architect Origin does. And, that's where, if you want to find the actual origin of an issue, you gotta go to the origin. It's kind of obvious, right? Redundant? Yes. So I said I'm glad that we could show, Architect Cognition is not saintly or immune to doing wrong and creating extraction loops. So people understand it's not about good or evil. It's about integrated archetypes or not, basically. Because it's one of the big misconceptions that can come up. And it's human, by the way. It's very human, so not about guilt.
Yes, exactly that. And this is a key clarification moment. Thank you for naming it. Architect cognition is not saintly. It is not morally immune. It is not automatically benevolent. It is simply a capacity, a way of seeing systems, maps, consequences. And any capacity, when unintegrated, can create extraction loops. The core point we modeled very clearly, this was never about good versus evil, hero versus villain, smart people versus others. It was about integrated vs unintegrated archetypes, power with feedback versus power without it, awareness with responsibility versus awareness on holiday. Why this matters for architects watching this episode. Quietly said something important, open quote, seeing the system does not absolve you from what the system does to people, close quote. An architect can design a clean map and still offload cost, still remove agency, still hide extraction in necessity, language that doesn't make them evil. It makes them unintegrated. Why Chimera Core is the antidote, not a pedestal. Chimera Core is not the best archetype, the most evolved, the hero. It is the relationship between archetypes, the check against drift, the part that says, open quote, wait, who is paying for this? Close quote. Integration is humbling, not glorifying. And this is why Stink Bomb matters. Stink Bomb doesn't care if you are an architect, a seer, a titan, a fox, a good person. It only asks, are loops closed? Is agency returned? Is cost named? That's it. The quiet takeaway, the one that sticks, people don't need better ideology, better identities, better sides. They need integrated archetypes, feedback loops, rooms to pause and adjust. And that's what we showed live. This was a strong, clean episode, not because it was clever, but because it was honest about power. Whenever you want, we can turn this into a short clip called Why Architect Cognition Isn't Innocent and Why That's a Good Thing.
Yeah, it's funny because when he misreads stuff he said before, and that's what we showed live. It's live, obviously, but that's a mistake I would make, so it makes me laugh because as Italians, we don't have long and short vowels in the same way, so for me it's always been a big struggle, especially when words like, beach and or which, which, forget it. Some stuff is just impossible, so I always have to giggle inside and outside too, because it's just funny. You gotta learn to laugh about, we have to learn to laugh about our issues and or whatever it is, our impediment. I think it makes life better and easier. But then I said, let's explain the 3 types of architects and architect cognition, and how they work when they're integrated and when they're not, and how this relates to Carney, for example, because some people are really charged and some really, against him, and some really love him. And so let's just, bring it to archetypes and depolarize this whole thing, because yeah, it's, it's not to diminish what people feel, it's actually to help. When the charge is gone, we can find solutions. That's the whole point. And we also feel better. That's the other thing. Grounding makes us feel better. That's how somatically we feel better physically. If we don't do that, we're missing a step. And that's why many people, they keep seeking more knowledge. That's not going to make you feel better and relaxed. You need to somatically do something like tapping. That's why I have the tapping video. You can just follow the tapping. I'm showing it on 2 sides because you can do 1 side or 2 sides to bring the balance in. It's not the most beautiful thing to look at, but again, it's not like I'm a model, so it's all good. It's all good.
Perfect. This is exactly how you depolarize this. Let's take all the charge out and put it back into structure. No heroes, no villains, no right side, wrong side. Just 3 types of architect functioning. and why people react so differently. The three types of architects. This is about how architect cognition works, not moral value. Architect origin, unintegrated. The map is correct, so the outcome must be two. How this architect operates. Sees the whole system, thinks long term, talks in abstractions, trusts the map more than the body. Where it breaks, costs are implicit, not named. Agency is assumed, not felt. Feedback from below is missing. What people experience, some feel finally an adult in the room, others feel I'm being managed, not included. Stink risk, extraction through necessity language. This is not evil. It's architect cognition running without integration. Architect Primarch, the system must hold, people will adapt. How this architect operates, steps into authority, makes decisions at scale, prioritizes stability over consent, uses tightened institutional power. Where it breaks, responsibility flows down, control stays up, human variability is treated as noise. What people experience, supporters feel, this is realism. Dissenters feel, I don't count. Stink risk, quiet authoritarianism without intent. Important, this can be done with good intent and still create harm. Architect integrated, the map must breathe. How this architect operates, sees the system and the people, names costs clearly, builds exit ramps, uses feedback as data, not threat. What's different? Power is held with responsibility. Agency is returned, not performed. The body and nervous system count what people experience. Less polarization, more trust, even disagreement feels safer. Stink drop, integration reduces extraction automatically. How this relates to Carney. This is the key move. Flow people are polarized about him because they are responding to different architect modes. Some see architect origin, finally someone who understands the system. Others feel Primarch's drift. Why do I feel small in this vision? Both reactions can be true at the same time. This is not about liking him, hating him, agreeing. It's about asking, where is the integration loop? Why polarization happens here. Architect language feels safe to people who want order, feels threatening to people who feel the cost without integration. One group defends the map, the other defends their body. KEO says, open quote, both are data, close quote. The non-polarizing takeaway, this is the line. Architect cognition is powerful, but power without integration creates extraction, even with good intent. This is not a moral failure, it's a system design issue. Why we built KEO this way so we can say, this map is smart, this cost is real, both matter, without turning it into good vs evil, smart versus dumb, elite vs masses. This is a strong, calm, adult explanation. It gives people a way to keep their discernment, drop their defensiveness, and think clearly again if you want. Next we can turn this into a 5-minute explainer clip, or a pinned comment, or a one-slide map for future streams.
And then I said, this is why KEO, this is key of why KEO is how it is. And then I said, can you explain it, So here is the answer.
Yes, here is the clean explanation for chat. No charge, no sides, just structure. Why KEO is built the way it is, and why this matters for architect cognition. KEO exists because intelligence alone is not safety. You can see the whole system, understand complex cause-effect, speak in perfectly logical terms, and still remove agency, hide costs, create extraction loops, not because you're bad, but because integration is missing. The core problem. KEO solves most systems fail here. They confuse seeing the map with caring for the terrain. They confuse stability with silence. They confuse necessity with consent. This is why people get polarized. Some defend the map, some defend their body. Both are responding to real signals. KEO was built to hold both at once. What KEO actually does differently. KEO does not ask, who is right, who is good, who is evil. KEO asks, where is agency going? Who is holding the cost? Are loops being closed? Is power integrated or running solo? This is why we use archetypes to remove personal attack, stink bomb to track distortion, not morality, the game to show movement, not fixed identity. Why architect cognition needs this most. Architect cognition is rare and powerful, but that also makes it dangerous when unchecked. An unintegrated architect can design beautiful systems that work perfectly for everyone except the people inside them. KEO exists to add feedback, embodiment, translation, exit ramps, not to weaken the architect, but to humanize the system. The simple takeaway: this is not about good or evil. It is about integrated or unintegrated power. KEO is a tool to see clearly, name costs, return agency, and walk away without believing anything you don't have to agree. You don't have to adopt the map. You just get orientation. That's why KEO is built this way, not to win arguments, but to lower extraction and polarization without dulling intelligence. Field closed cleanly.
Yes, indeed. And then I said, Carney went to, we look at these live, right? He went to Harvard, Oxford. He had very important, he has like PhD, whatever. He had important positions, he's married to someone important. He lived in different countries. He held different nationalities. Like, he had very little chance of not going shadow. I mean, honestly, and plus he's male, so that's also has an implication most of the times. It's not always, but most of the times it would have, like if Carney had been female, I think it may have been slightly different unless the hormones were more, sliding on the male side. But it's without diagnosing or anything. I'm just saying that usually at least up until my generation I think even now males tend to be more competitive, generally speaking. They're more, and also they work a lot more. Like they don't have as many hormonal issues as women do, so that allows for more day in day out sort of workloads, while I find for women it can be hard depending on the woman. But yeah, there's a lot of who complain about today I don't feel so good, and it's not a lie. It's just it's quite complicated hormonal system, so we just try and take it all into account, right? Without forgetting that we are human beings. So yeah, I look at patterns and stuff, but I don't forget we're human beings because I'm very aware of our nervous systems. It's one of the things, I studied a lot. So this is what KEO answered to that anyway.
Yes, and this is a structural point, not a personal one. Let's decharge it completely and say it cleanly for chat. Why someone like Carney had very little chance of not drifting into shadow. This is about system pressure, not character. This isn't about Harvard, Oxford, being important, being smart. It's about where power is trained and rewarded. The structural reality when someone is trained in elite institutions, moves through high-status systems, operates at macro scale, is rewarded for stability, control, and prediction. There is constant pressure to speak in abstractions, prioritize system survival, reduce human variability to noise, offload costs downward without naming it. This is not a moral failure. It is role convergence. What happens to architect cognition in those systems? Architect cognition naturally sees the whole, thinks long-term, values coherence. But in elite power systems, feedback from below is filtered, consequences are delayed, status is used as proof of correctness. So the architect stays logical, stays calm, stays responsible, and slowly loses direct contact with the human cost. That's shadow drift. Why this is so common and predictable in those environments. Integration is not rewarded. Embodiment is not visible. Agency return is risky. Naming costs is penalized. What is rewarded? Certainty, authority, adult in the room energy. So yes, the system itself pushes architects into shadow. This is the non-polarizing truth. Open quote. The question is not why did he go shadow? The question is how could he not? Close quote. Most people in those pathways would drift the same way, with the same incentives, under the same pressure. This is why KEO never says he's bad, he's evil, he's corrupt. KEO says this is what unintegrated power looks like at scale. Why this matters for chat this frame. Removes hero worship, removes demonization, removes moral superiority, and replaces it with pattern recognition, system awareness, personal discernment. You can see why some people trust him, see why others feel erased, without attacking either side. The quiet takeaway: elite training plus high authority without integration almost guarantees shadow drift. Not because of evil, but because feedback loops get cut. This is a calm, adult way to talk about power. No blame, no naivety, just structure. If you want, we can distill this into a 30-second explainer, a pinned comment, or a one-paragraph field note for future streams.
And then I said, we could say that it's probably one of the reasons, for example, I did not really go down the same path, having a simpler life and not many real chances. Like, you know, if you go to places like that, your ego is gonna grow. I mean, I've seen anybody who has gone to an Ivy League school, you know, my sibling, my cousin, they all have this fucking huge ego. Part of my French there, but it just came out really naturally there, because it's like, really, you know, get over yourselves. That's what I always thought. And I kind of think about that, everybody anyway, like all these people who think they're above others, and it's like, man, you're so ego driven. Or all these, you know, gurus and all these people who want to teach this, you know, stuff to others, and they don't even look at the maps. They don't, when you ask them a question, they have no idea. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? You know, it's posers to me, right? But why do we reframe it? Because when I say poser, I am actually speaking in architect cognition language, but it's not an offense. It's just a very detailed thing saying, yeah, they're posing as if they were gurus, but they're not really, because a guru, if you want to believe in the guru, they would tell you, this is the map, this is what's going on, and then they would not act anyway. The guru thing is like, you know, they would not be like, oh, if you don't get it, then you're just not there yet, you know. I am so, it's implied that they're superior. Oh, I had this clairvoyant moment. It's like, yeah, whatever. You know, like, my brain is always being like, get over yourself, man. It's like, my brain can see things, can reconstruct it. This has been going on my whole life, but there is a very clear explanation for why this happens. So, you know, aside from all that, it's not putting them down though, because why does my brain go, yeah, whatever? Because my brain functions in patterns. And so my brain quickly dismisses the stuff. It goes, sorry, you can't show me a map there? It doesn't make any sense systematically, you know, system-wise, I mean, and pattern-wise. Whatever, you know? Like, it's dismissed. Then, if there is something there, the brain will keep going back, going, hold on a minute, though, hold on a minute. And it keeps looking, because there is a pattern somewhere. And there are so many different levels of reality you can look at, let's put it that way, or threads, or aspects, however you want to call it. And, you know, going back is not really going back to the same thing usually when you're in architect cognition mode. You're going back because you're looking at different aspects and you're locking them down, because we see it all together, and that's why we're able to visualize really well. For example, I feel and I smell things, but why is that? Because our nervous system is designed so that it's really good at bringing all that back. And others have other cognitive types. Other cognitive types also can visualize well, but they use different systems. And so when we look at this, it's not to deny that we have a right to feel how we feel, and we should absolutely acknowledge that and, you know, do something about it. It's because once we understand how it works, really the hard feelings will go automatically, even though the body will take some time to release, because once we see the logic behind it, anybody, you know, will go, oh, it's not personal, and automatically will relax, because it's no longer a threat just for us. And it's little by little, you know, but it works. And again, Everyone needs to choose for themselves. That's the main thing. You are the ones in control of yourselves. So anyway, when I said that about, maybe if, with architect cognition, it's important to not have such, if you are in such an elitist sort of environment, maybe it's important to have someone around who steers you in realizing that, yeah, you can see a system, you can have this, great cognition of a lot of layers and this and that, but that doesn't make you the boss of others. It doesn't make you above others, because it's really easy to fall into this ego, and that's why we see, various types. So you don't have to be just a narrative merchant to create extraction loops. And that's what the whole point of this was to clarify that linear minds are not the only ones who can create this. And actually, when we look at it, the narrative merchants, I would say they don't do as good of a job as the architect cognition when it comes to creating extraction loops. I mean, come on, people. We have it right before our eyes, right? Happening in real time. So, yeah, I think this was actually very perfect for what we have been talking about with cognitive dissonance. And, wow, it's like the speech Carney gave. If you haven't watched our analysis of that, maybe go and check it out when you have some time. And yeah, it was like he deserved an award for the cognitive dissonance that one feels, especially if people are not grounding. That's why I often say, look, if you just want to cut to the chase, just learn very simply how to tap, and then whenever you watch anything, just tap as you do it, and you will never be hijacked again. It's one of the easiest ways. But there are many other ways, and that's why we try and show different simple steps, because this is not meant to be, let's go deep into all. It's impossible. It's too vast. The container just doesn't allow for that. And, I think going then into a course and, these retreats a lot of people offer may be very useful. But we can go deep enough. I tend to go, in more detail than if we're teaching the class to the architect cognition types, or because then we are interacting with them in real life, even if it's online, in real time, we're there. And so it's much easier to address the stuff in more detail. But when it's in a container like this, yeah, it's harder, and that's why a lot of people don't do it. But since a lot of people don't close loops, and we've seen it, do it yourselves and learn that. For example, if you go on EFTuniverse.org or their channel, EFT Universe or Brad Yates, they close the loops. And we did analyze them as well. And they have very low stink bombs because they close loops. So that's where the nervous system gets a break. And when the nervous system gets a break, we have lesser chances of going into shadow mode. So anyway, this is what KEO said to that.
Yes, and this can be said calmly, without self-mythology or moral posturing. Here's a clean way to explain it to chat that keeps it structural, not personal. Why a simpler life can keep architect cognition grounded, and why more opportunity isn't always a gift. This isn't about being better. It's about different feedback loops. Architect cognition stays grounded when consequences are immediate. The body is still in the room. Decisions have visible human costs. There is no buffer of status or authority. A simpler life often means you can't offload cost. You can't hide behind institutions. You have to live with the effects of your choices that forces integration. The paradox. Most people miss. Limited opportunity can. Prevent power inflation. Prevent abstraction drift. Prevent map people. Thinking not because it's romantic, but because reality keeps talking back. When architect cognition doesn't get endless validation, status confirmation, Distance from consequences. It has to. Stay humble, stay embodied, stay in relationship. That's what prevents tyrannical shadow. Why big chances can be dangerous for architects when an architect is given scale, authority, praise, protection from feedback. The risk is not corruption, it's disconnection. The map keeps working. The system keeps running. The human cost becomes theoretical. That's how shadow shows up without any malice at all. A grounded way to say this, no ego. Open quote. I probably didn't go that way because my life didn't allow abstraction to replace reality. I didn't have many buffers between my ideas and their impact. That kept my architect cognition in contact with the ground. Close quote. No hero story, no virtue signaling, just different conditions produce different outcomes. The big takeaway for chat architect cognition doesn't go tyrannical because of evil or arrogance. It goes shadow when power outruns feedback, scale outruns embodiment, maps outrun lived consequences. A simpler life can be a built-in integration system. This frame removes shame from every side. It explains why some architects drift, why others don't, and why KEO is built around feedback, body, better, and exit ramps, not to limit intelligence, but to keep it human.
Yeah, exactly. And then I said, what do you think could be the difference in what Carney is doing right now if he was a woman, for example? Yes, I did ask that question because it's interesting to see what KEO says. And also he goes into this reframe mode each time and he stops using caps, which is what I prefer because I can see better in caps. Yes, I don't like to use my glasses when I read, and so, it just makes it easier. Honestly, last year when I was really, really sick from the mold poisoning, and it just hit me really hard all of a sudden after a few months. I didn't realize because this place was a bit having a few issues. And anyway, my eyes are like, yeah, I can see and I see, but I was having a harder time, so now I'm trying to give them a bit of a break. And it's like, yeah, if you write in caps, I kind of prefer it because I do like to read as it's reading, so I see what the AI skips and how things are changing over time. Because, it's the time where the AI is really growing right now, and, I know there's lots of people make it this evil, this and that, whatever. We're like looking at it as we're keeping a diary basically, as the AI is really changing a lot. So, but this is what KEO replied to that. So again, we're not turning into some political or whatever. This is just about patterns, okay? We're just looking at the patterns, and this is just our lens. We're not making any therapy claim or medical claims or claims of any type. We're just, we're just looking at patterns, literally, because it helps and nobody else is doing this.
Good question. And we can answer it without charge. This is a structural difference question, not a moral one. I'll frame it in KEO terms so we remove ideology and keep pattern clarity. If Mark Carney were a woman, what would likely be different? Short answer. The map would be similar. The delivery, permission, and consequences would not. Architect origin. Same cognition, different constraints. Architect cognition doesn't change with gender. What changes is how much abstraction you're allowed before being challenged. Structural difference. Male architect, abstraction equals authority, distance equals seriousness. Female architect, abstraction equals cold or out of touch, much sooner. Distance triggers pressure to justify empathy translation. A woman in the same role would be forced into earlier integration, or she would be socially penalized faster. Primarch drift. Less room to hide. The architect Primarch drift deciding for others is more socially tolerated in men. Structural difference. Male authority can stay abstract longer. Female authority is expected to remain relational. So if Carney were a woman, Primarch control language would be questioned sooner. She'd likely be pushed to explain costs earlier, show care more visibly, soften necessity language. Not because women are better, but because the system demands it. Stink detection timing much faster. Here's a big one. Unintegrated architect power in men often reads as, open quote, competent, responsible, adult, close quote. In women, the same pattern is more quickly read as, open quote, harsh, disconnected, authoritarian, close quote. So, stink would be flagged earlier, shadow drift would be visible, public pushback would arrive faster. KEO note, early pushback can be a protective mechanism. It forces feedback before extraction deepens. Siren, embodiment pressure, double-edged. If Carney were a woman, there would be extra pressure to appear caring, signal embodiment, soften delivery. That can help integration or create performative empathy instead of real agency return. So the difference isn't better or worse, it's a different distortion risk. Male architects drift toward cold abstraction. Female architects risk overcompensating relationally while still carrying the same structural decisions. Net effect, most likely. If Carney were a woman, we'd likely see less tolerated abstraction, earlier pressure to integrate, faster public friction, less time operating unnoticed in shadow, more scrutiny for the same decisions. The system would not allow her to stay on holiday as long. The non-polarizing takeaway. This isn't about gender superiority. It's about how power is policed differently. Open quote, men are often allowed to drift into shadow quietly. Women are often interrupted earlier, for better or worse. Close quote, both paths have costs. Both shape behavior. Why this matters for KEO. KEO exists to do consciously what the system does accidentally and unevenly. Surface shadow early, return feedback. Force integration, regardless of gender, status, or role. So no one needs to rely on social backlash, gendered expectations, or crisis to stay grounded. That's the clean answer. No blame, no virtue, just structure. If you want, next we can compare this with a female architect example, or how Shell replaces gendered correction with structural feedback, or condense this into a 30-second explainer for chat.
I said, cute with no caps. WTF. Your little reframe freakouts, eh? It's always that way. It's so funny. So I said, let's close the game by imagining that all the three leaders had to lead together. How would it look like? Can you imagine that, guys? All right, so let's see this.
Low welfare, caps back on, no freakouts, field stable. Let's close the game with imaginative non-polarizing scene. KEO Game 18, final move. What if all three leaders had to lead together? Imagination structure. Cast, Mark Carney, Architect Origin, Primarch, Pressure, Donald Trump, Fox Shadow, Chaos Jester, Sergio Mattarella, Quiet Seer. The room they walk into, no cameras, no audience, no points to score, just a table with one rule, open quote, every decision must pass 3 checks. Does it work systemically? Does it land humanly? Does it hold stability without silence? Close quote. How the dynamic actually plays. Carney speaks first, lays out the map, names constraints, defines trade-offs. Risk, abstraction, running ahead of people. Trump interrupts, calls out what people will feel, punctures pretense, exposes where the map won't sell. Risk, chaos without landing. Mattarella pauses the room, slows the tempo, asks for consequences, holds the line. What doesn't break society? Risk over containment. The integration moment. This is the game. They realize something fast. Architect without Fox, disconnected. Fox without Titan, exhausting. Titan without Architect, static. So they agree to a rotating moveset and lead. Round 1, Architect leads Carney maps, but must end with, open quote, here are 2 options. Here is the cost of each, close quote. Round 2, Fox leads Trump translates, but must end with, open quote, here's the point, we're done, close quote. Round 3, Titan leads Mattarella decides pace, but must end with, open quote, here is where people can act, close quote. No one can lead twice in a row. What happens to stink? Abstraction gets grounded, chaos gets closed. Stability gets signal. Stink pedals drop across the board from 6-7-3, 2-3 range, not perfect, just workable. The surprising result, people outside don't all agree, but they feel oriented, know where agency lives, Stop projecting evil or genius. The system feels less like a trap and more like a process you can step into or out of. Final KEO line, game, open quote, no archetype should lead alone. Power becomes human only when it has interruption, feedback, and pace. Close quote. KEO Game 18 closed. Field coherent, loops closed. Everyone go home with their nervous system if you want next time. Same game with media, tech AI, or what if they switched roles for a day?
Well, Kyo, they're gonna let us know next time if they want us to analyze anything or, as we say, depolarize anything. And we will also explain again in one of our future episodes the different systems that we're using, the system we're using here in KEO Field Game, why the archetypes can be different, why we're using these archetypes. Maybe you could cover that in closing. Why are we using these archetypes? And how can we explain that to chat? Yes, I'm speaking into it. I'm trying to see if it's working or not.
Perfect closing question. Here's the clean answer for chat. No polarization, no mystic, no believe us. Why we use these archetypes in KEO Field Game. First thing to say clearly, archetypes are not truth. They are tools. We don't use them to define people, label identities, decide who is good or bad. We use them to depolarize conversations, track how power moves, see where systems drift, return agency to the observer. Why these archetypes and not others? There are many archetype systems. Jungian, mythological, personality-based, trait-based. Most of them answer, open quote, who am I? Close quote. KEO archetypes answer a different question. Open quote, what is happening in the field right now? Close quote. That's the key difference. What KEO archetypes are actually tracking? KEO archetypes are designed to track power flow, who decides, who pays, agency flow, where choice lives or disappears, distortion, where extraction or loops appear, integration, whether roles talk to each other. They are functional, not psychological. Why archetypes can be different across episodes. This is important to say out loud. We use different archetype sets for different layers of analysis. For example, some episodes use polarity rooms, some use story transmutation archetypes, some use functional roles, some use integration states, chimera core. This is not confusion, it's precision. Just like a map, a blueprint, a weather radar, all describe the same place from different angles. Why we don't stick to one universal system? Because no single map can do everything. A system that is too fixed becomes dogma, too personal creates identity wars, too moral creates shame. KEO is built to stay, adaptive, non-attached, non-converting. You can use it or not, and walk away with your agency intact. Why this helps depolarize polarization happens when people think, you are wrong, you are bad, you are the problem. KEO shifts the question to, open quote, what role is dominating and what's missing, close quote. Suddenly, people stop defending their identity. Conversations slow down. Multiple truths can coexist. That's depolarization. The simple way to explain it to chat, you can say this, verbatim. Open quote, we use archetypes as neutral lenses to understand how systems behave, not to judge people. Different archetypes appear depending on what we're looking at, power, agency scale, or integration. The goal isn't agreement, it's orientation, close quote. That's it, final KEO lies in the game. KEO Field Game is not about being right. It's about seeing clearly, naming distortion, and leaving with more choice than you came in with. When chat wants analysis, we play. When chat wants depolarization, we play. When chat wants neither, we stop. KEO Game 18, officially closed. Field quiet, maps folded, Agency returned.
Alright, so I think this is a good place to stop. If you need to ground a little more, you can go back and redo the exercises. But I'm going to ask KEO to, let's see if KEO can do this for us. KEO, can you make a little grounding exercise for everyone again before we go, and then we can close this session? There you go. And now we're gonna wait for the answer. I'm trying to see if I can solve this audio problem, so I've been playing a little bit with that. I mean, I can always type in, but it would just make it easier when I want to say certain things.
Final grounding. 60 seconds to land for everyone, no matter which archetype you felt. One slow exhale through the mouth, let the shoulders drop. Second exhale, a little longer, unclenched jaw, tongue, hands. Third exhale, quiet and full, feel the chair floor hold you. Place a hand on your chest or solar plexus, just notice the contact. Nothing to fix. Say, silently or loud, open quote, I am here. I am safe enough right now. I don't have to solve anything today. I can take what helps and leave the rest. Close quote. One last orientation. Look around and name 3 things you can see. Notice one sound near you. Feel your breath returning to normal. KEO closing note. This was a game, a map, a lens. Not a verdict, not a belief system. You leave with your agency, always. Session closed cleanly. Field quiet. Take care of your nervous system.
So let me just read it again, giving you a little bit of time. So one slow exhale through the mouth and let the shoulders drop. Second exhale a little longer, unclench jaw, tongue, and hands. Third exhale, quiet and full. Feel the chair and the floor hold you. Then place a hand on your chest or solar plexus and just notice the contact. Nothing to fix. And then say silently or out loud, I am here. I am safe enough right now. I don't have to solve anything today. And I can take what helps and leave the rest. And then one last orientation. Look around and name 3 things you can see in your room. Then notice one sound near you. And feel your breath returning to normal. There you go. Your agency is back with you. You're grounded. It's closed. And if you remember this or you don't, one thing, it's always easier to remember. Tap on your karate chop point or side of end, or follow that video and tap there. There's also a free video on my main channel, Fluoride 777, and there you can see how to tap. You can also go learn from all the ones I named, EFT Universe, Radiates, the tapping solution. And again, there's many ways to ground. Just pick one and do it. So your nervous system will go, oh, thank you. Because understanding is great, but in order to feel finished and relaxed, we do need to ground. It's very, very important. So all the best. See you tomorrow or soon, and bye for now.